Welcome to Life Stories, where we share powerful and inspiring tales that touch hearts and teach valuable lessons. Today, we follow Olivia Carter, a young girl with a secret identity and an even bigger heart, as she navigates the challenges of bullying, resilience, and finding her true strength. Her journey reminds us that standing up for what's right and believing in yourself can lead to meaningful change. Don't miss this emotional and empowering story. Subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's tale and stay connected for more unforgettable stories that inspire. Let's dive in. Olivia Carter stepped out of the car and gazed at the towering brick facade of Greenfield Academy. The school's ivy-covered walls seemed to whisper promises of new beginnings and endless possibilities. As she adjusted her backpack, her heart raced with a mix of excitement and apprehension. This was her chance to live a normal life, to experience school as just another teenager, not as Olivia Carter, the daughter of the president. She had begged her parents for this opportunity. Please, she'd said to her father, President Carter, during one of their rare family dinners. I just want to know what it's like to be normal. Even for a little while. Her father had hesitated, his brow furrowing with concern. But her mother, always the softer of the two, had finally convinced him. They agreed under one condition: her identity as the president's daughter would remain a secret. Now, as Olivia stood before the entrance of Greenfield Academy, her chest swelled with a sense of freedom. She wasn't Olivia Carter, the first daughter of the United States. She was Olivia Daniels, a regular teenager embarking on a new adventure. The hallways buzzed with chatter and laughter as Olivia made her way to her first class. Her excitement dimmed slightly as she navigated through the sea of unfamiliar faces. She was used to being recognized instantly, greeted with deference or curiosity. Here, she was invisible, which was exactly what she had wanted, yet it still made her stomach twist with nervousness. When the teacher introduced her to the class, Olivia mustered her brightest smile and took her assigned seat. The room felt warm, filled with the whispers of students curious about the new girl. She glanced around, hoping to catch a friendly gaze, but instead met the sharp eyes of Harper Monroe, who had just returned from the hallway. Harper's presence was magnetic, but not in a comforting way. Her sleek blonde hair and confident posture screamed entitlement. Olivia had no idea who she was, but the sneer on Harper's face spoke volumes. Who brought a hippo into the classroom? Harper's voice rang out, slicing through the murmurs like a blade. The class erupted into laughter, the sound reverberating in Olivia's ears. Her face burned as she clutched her bag, her knuckles whitening. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the chair and never be seen again. From the back of the room, a boy's voice rose, cutting through the noise. That's enough. Harper, he said firmly. Olivia turned to see him. Jack. His name was. His expression was stern, his dark eyes fixed on Harper with disapproval. Harper shrugged, her lips curling into a smirk. Oh, I'm sorry, she drawled. I meant to say she's an elephant, not a hippo. The laughter resumed, louder this time, and Olivia felt tears prick the corners of her eyes. She willed herself not to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. Jack stood up, his voice sharp and commanding. I said that's enough. Harper. The room quieted, and for a moment, Olivia felt a glimmer of gratitude toward Jack. But the damage had already been done. As the day wore on, Harper and her best friend Grace made it their mission to torment Olivia. They whispered loudly whenever she walked by, giggling and glancing her way. Every time Olivia tried to participate in class or speak to someone, she could feel their eyes on her, judging, mocking. By the time the final bell rang, Olivia was exhausted, her heart heavy with embarrassment. She trudged to the dormitory, her feet dragging as she replayed the day's events in her mind. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind her. She turned to see Jack jogging to catch up. Hey, he said, his voice warm and friendly. Olivia. Right. She nodded, her lips curving into a shy smile. I just wanted to say I'm sorry about what happened earlier, Jack said, his expression sincere. Harper had no right to say those things. Olivia shrugged, trying to appear unaffected. It's fine, she said, though her voice betrayed her. Jack looked at her thoughtfully. It's not fine, he said. You don't deserve that. No one does. For the first time that day, Olivia felt a spark of hope. Thanks, she murmured, her voice soft but genuine. As they reached the dormitory, Jack turned to her, his smile encouraging. Hey, if you ever need someone to talk to or sit with at lunch, I'm here. Friends. Olivia's heart lifted at the word. Friends, she said, smiling back. As Jack walked away, Olivia lingered for a moment. Watching him go, she felt a little lighter, as though the weight of the day had been slightly lifted. For the first time since arriving at Greenfield Academy, she believed that maybe, just maybe, she could find her place here. But as Olivia turned to enter the dormitory, she caught sight of Harper and Grace across the courtyard. Their eyes locked on her, their laughter cold and mocking. The knot in her stomach returned. This was only the beginning. The next morning, Olivia approached her locker with cautious optimism. Jack's kind words from the day before lingered in her mind. A small boy keeping her afloat. As she gathered her books, she noticed a group of students laughing by the water fountain. Among them were Harper and Grace. Harper's voice carried across the hallway. Did you see the new girl yesterday? She looked like a scared little puppy. Or maybe a cow, she sneered, loud enough for Olivia to hear. Olivia's stomach churned, but she pretended not to notice. She'd promised herself she wouldn't let Harper's words get to her. She focused on the sound of her locker slamming shut, using it to drown out the laughter. When she arrived in the cafeteria at lunchtime, Olivia hesitated. The large room was filled with tables of students chatting and laughing. She scanned the room for Jack, hoping for a friendly face. Spotting an empty table in the corner, she decided to sit there, her tray trembling slightly in her hands. Moments later, Jack appeared beside her, his tray balanced effortlessly in one hand. Mind if I join you? He asked with a grin. Olivia felt her spirits lift. Of course, she replied, smiling as he sat down. So, Jack said, leaning forward, how's Greenfield Academy treating you so far? Besides, well, you know. Olivia chuckled nervously. It's been interesting, she admitted. The classes are great. But the people. Jack nodded knowingly. Don't let Harper get to you. She thrives on making people feel small because it makes her feel bigger. Before Olivia could respond, a shadow loomed over their table. Harper stood there, her arms crossed, Grace close behind her. Harper's expression was smug as she pulled out a chair and sat between Olivia and Jack. Hey, Jack, Harper said, her tone sweet but laced with venom. What are you doing with her? Jack frowned. We're having lunch. Harper. What does it look like? Harper's eyes narrowed. She doesn't belong here, she said, glaring at Olivia. And she definitely doesn't belong at this table. Enough. Harper. Jack said firmly. This is ridiculous. Ridiculous? Harper snapped, her voice rising. You're choosing her over me, over us. She gestured toward Grace, who smirked in agreement. Harper, Jack said, his voice steady. We broke up for a reason. I'm not going to be part of your games anymore. The cafeteria grew quiet, students turning to watch the drama unfold. Harper's face flushed, but her voice remained sharp. You're defending her? The hippo. The words stung, but Olivia clenched her fists and remained silent. Jack stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Don't call her that again, he said, his voice shaking with anger. The room was so silent Olivia could hear her own heartbeat. She reached for Jack's arm, whispering, It's okay. Please. Don't. The cafeteria attendant hurried over, her voice calm but firm. Harper. Grace. Please return to your table. Harper rolled her eyes but stood, her movements deliberate and slow. "Fine," she said, tossing her hair over her shoulder. As she walked away, she turned back and added, "But don't think this is over." The tension lingered even after Harper left. Olivia looked at Jack. Her eyes filled with gratitude. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "Yes, I did," Jack replied. "No one deserves to be treated that way." Despite the encounter, Olivia felt a flicker of strength. Jack's unwavering support reminded her that she wasn't completely alone. But later that day, Harper and Grace escalated their torment. During class, Harper poured fake blood on Olivia's chair while her back was turned. When Olivia sat down, she didn't notice the stain. As the bell rang and Olivia stood to leave, she felt the weight of stares and laughter behind her. Confused, she turned to find Jack approaching with a concerned expression. He quickly wrapped his cardigan around her waist, shielding the stain. "What's wrong?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling. "There's something on your dress," Jack said gently. Olivia's heart sank as she realized what had happened. From across the hall, Harper stood holding her phone, recording the scene with a triumphant smirk. "Delete that," Olivia demanded, her voice stronger than she thought possible. Harper laughed, shaking her head. "And if I don't?" she sneered. Anger surged through Olivia. "Then I'll show you exactly what I'm made of." The hallway fell silent, the students watching in stunned silence. Even Jack seemed surprised by Olivia's sudden boldness. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, Olivia felt a fire ignite within her. She wasn't going to let Harper win. The tension in the school reached a breaking point the next day when Harper refused to delete the video. Her defiance spread across the student body as the video circulated online, mocking Olivia and intensifying her humiliation. By the time Olivia arrived at school, whispers trailed her every step. Even students she didn't know stole glances at her, some pitying, others mocking. Olivia fought to keep her head high, but every giggle and side-eye chipped away at her resolve. When she arrived at the principal's office that morning, she found herself face to face with Harper, Grace, and their smug smiles. "I'm not afraid of you," Olivia said firmly, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. Harper leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "You should be," she replied coolly. "You don't know who my dad is, do you?" Olivia's jaw clenched. She had heard enough about Governor Monroe, Harper's father, to know he wielded his political influence like a weapon. But she refused to back down. The principal entered moments later, his expression tense. "Ladies, we need to address this issue," he began. But before he could continue, his phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID, his face paling. "Excuse me," he said, answering the call. Harper smirked, already anticipating the conversation. From the other side of the line, Governor Monroe's booming voice filled the room. "What's this nonsense about my daughter being mistreated?" he demanded. "Harper tells me this other student is trying to cause trouble. I want it dealt with immediately, or you'll regret it." The principal's tone turned submissive. "Yes, Governor Monroe. Of course, sir. We'll handle it." Harper's grin widened as the principal ended the call and turned back to the room. "It seems we're at an impasse," he said reluctantly. "For now, I need to ask both sides to bring their parents next week for further discussion." Olivia's heart sank. She had promised herself she wouldn't involve her father, President Carter. She didn't want to be seen as relying on her family's power. Not when she had fought so hard to live a normal life. That evening, Olivia sat in her dormitory, wrestling with her emotions. Tears welled in her eyes as she picked up her phone and called her aunt, the only family member she felt comfortable confiding in. After listening to Olivia's tearful recount of the events, her aunt's voice was calm but firm. "This isn't just about you, Olivia," she said. "It's about standing up to people like Harper and her father. I think it's time we called your dad." "No," Olivia begged. "Please. Don't tell him. I can handle this. Her aunt sighed. You shouldn't have to handle it alone. But if that's what you want, I'll come to the meeting myself. Reluctantly, Olivia agreed. She didn't realize that her aunt had already made a second call to President Carter. The day of the meeting arrived, and the tension was palpable. Harper entered the principal's office with her father, their confidence unmistakable. Olivia sat across from them with her aunt by her side. Just as the principal was about to start the discussion, a commotion outside the school interrupted. The sound of sirens and the sight of black SUVs pulling into the campus stunned everyone. Whispers spread through the hallways. The president was here. Olivia's heart raced as she watched her father step out of the car, his tall frame exuding authority. He walked into the school with security guards flanking him, his expression stern. "Dad," Olivia whispered, standing as he entered the room. President Carter's gaze softened when he saw his daughter. He hugged her tightly before turning to face Governor Monroe. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice firm but controlled. Governor Monroe attempted to maintain his composure, but his confidence faltered. "It's a simple misunderstanding, Mr. President," he said, his tone far less assured than before. President Carter's piercing gaze silenced him. "Misunderstanding? Bullying isn't a misunderstanding. It's an abuse of power, and I'm disappointed to see it come from someone who should know better." The room fell silent as President Carter's words echoed. Harper and Grace looked visibly shaken, their smug attitudes replaced with fear. "I'll ensure this situation is resolved," President Carter continued, his tone unwavering. "But know this, no one is above accountability, not even you, Governor Monroe." As he finished speaking, Olivia felt a weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. The room was frozen in stunned silence as President Carter's words hung heavy in the air. Governor Monroe shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his confidence shaken for the first time. Harper, sitting beside him, kept her eyes downcast, avoiding the president's piercing gaze. Grace fidgeted nervously, her usual bravado gone. President Carter turned to Olivia, his expression softening. "Olivia, I'm sorry this happened to you. You should never have had to face this alone," he said gently. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. But this time they weren't tears of sadness or humiliation, they were tears of relief. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. The principal cleared his throat, his tone suddenly more confident now that the president had set the tone. "Given the gravity of the situation, we will take immediate action. Harper Monroe and Grace Wilson will be suspended while we investigate further. Their behavior has clearly violated our school's code of conduct." Harper's head snapped up. "What? You can't do that," she protested, her voice shrill. "Do you know who my dad is?" The principal remained firm. "Your father's position doesn't excuse your actions." "Harper." Governor Monroe tried to intervene, his voice sharp. "You're making a mistake. Principal Hayes. This isn't over." President Carter didn't flinch. "You're right, Monroe, it's not over. This isn't just about school discipline, it's about addressing a deeper issue. Abuse of power, whether by a governor or a student, has consequences." The weight of those words silenced Monroe. He slumped in his chair, realizing the damage was already done. As the meeting ended, Olivia and her father stepped out of the office together. The students who had gathered in the hallways stared in awe. Whispers spread like wildfire. Olivia wasn't just the new girl, she was the president's daughter. Harper and Grace followed closely behind, their faces pale with embarrassment. Their peers avoided their gazes. The aura of superiority they once carried shattered. Later that day, Olivia found herself back at her dormitory, sitting by the window and watching the sun dip below the horizon. The events of the day had left her exhausted, but also filled with a new sense of strength. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Jack standing there, his expression warm. "Hey," he said. "How are you holding up?" Olivia smiled faintly. "Better. Thanks for always standing up for me." Jack shrugged, a playful grin spreading across his face. "What are friends for?" They sat together for a while, talking and laughing as the tension of the day melted away. For the first time in weeks, Olivia felt at peace. The next morning, news of the incident had spread beyond the school. The video of Harper's bullying, combined with her father's attempts to cover it up, had gone viral. Public outrage followed swiftly. People demanded accountability, not just from Harper, but from Governor Monroe himself. The scandal hit Monroe hard. His political career, once untouchable, crumbled under the weight of public scrutiny. Opponents used the incident as a rallying cry during the upcoming election, and Monroe's approval ratings plummeted. On election night, he suffered a decisive defeat, marking the end of his political reign. Back at Greenfield Academy, life slowly returned to normal. Harper and Grace were expelled, their reputations in ruins. They approached Olivia one afternoon, their heads hung low with shame. "We're sorry," Harper said quietly, her voice barely audible. "For everything." Olivia studied them for a moment, her expression unreadable. "You're not sorry because you've changed," she said calmly. "You're sorry because you got caught." With that, Olivia turned and walked away, leaving Harper and Grace standing in silence. Over the next few months, Olivia's confidence grew. She found her place at Greenfield Academy, surrounded by genuine friends like Jack who valued her for who she was. The whispers about her identity eventually faded, replaced by admiration for her strength and resilience. Olivia's journey wasn't just about standing up to bullies, it was about finding her voice and realizing her worth. Through the challenges she faced, she discovered that true power doesn't come from titles or influence, it comes from kindness, integrity, and the courage to stand up for what's right. And with that realization, Olivia knew she could face whatever challenges life had in store. Olivia's journey at Greenfield Academy was one of resilience, self-discovery, and courage. Despite the bullying and challenges she faced, she rose above them with grace, showing that true strength lies not in status or power but in kindness and integrity. Her bravery inspired others, and her actions reminded everyone that standing up for what's right can bring about meaningful change. The consequences Harper and her father faced served as a powerful lesson: no one is above accountability, and using power to harm others will never lead to true respect or success. Olivia's story is a testament to the importance of empathy, friendship, and perseverance. If you found her journey inspiring, don't forget to like and subscribe to Life Stories for more uplifting tales that touch the heart and teach valuable life lessons. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.